to pay 2.5% more for your electricity starting from July 1 this year, following a review of utility tariffs by the PURC. The decision to increase tariffs comes on the back of the cedi gaining significantly against the US dollar, raising hopes of a possible drop in tariff, particularly of electricity to cushion consumers. But according to the Public Utility Regulatory Commission, an outstanding debt of some 400 million cedis plus cost of liquid fuel and the cost of reserve capacity have forced the increase to come about. Water, however, has seen no changes. Let's go through the details that's made available by the Public Utility Regulatory Commission. And we know that electricity is what really is dominant. And so we're seeing a 2.45% increase being rounded up by a lot of people to 2.5%. And the factors for that increase, we're seeing for the first time the inclusion of the 27% of the cost of alternative fuels such as distillate fuel oil, heavy fuel oil, and light crude oil into the cost build-up for electricity. And it's important that this is mentioned. Remember that 1 cedi levy included on the energy sector recovery levy on fuel price build-up now suspended. The government explains that that was to cater for the purchase of these fuels to ensure electricity generation does not suffer. But we're now seeing a part of it being factored into the cost build-up for electricity. Then also, PURC tells us that there's the inclusion of reserve capacity for grid stability and reliability. Again, analysts are already making the argument that the factors for the cost build-up is shifting. But let's bring you a bit more on what PURC says is accounting for this. Then there is the inclusion of outstanding debt of some 488 million cedis carried over from the previous 3 quarters. And so the reason why you're seeing this increase as well is to offset some of this debt. We know that the weighted average cost of gas currently stands at $7.7 US, increasing slightly by just 1% thereabout in the second quarter review of 2025. But most significantly, what many of you were expecting would result in some decrease in the electricity tariff was this. The performance of the cedi down from 15.69 to 10.30. This as well, perhaps, is why we're not going to be paying so much more. We know that water is remaining the same. There are no changes with regards to that, no price change when it comes to water. Let's take you over the phone lines and engage the PURC, the Director of Research and Corporate Affairs at the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Dr. Eric Obute, who's joined us via the telephone lines. Mr. Obute, I appreciate you speaking to us. Quite simply, many will not be happy because the cedi has performed creditably. The question is, why are Ghanaians being asked to pay more for the electricity? The argument is being made that the factors which contribute to the price build-up is changing. Why is the PURC changing it?
It's not the case that the factors that are constituting the cost build-up are changing. But the fact is that the previous quarter, for instance, we had an outstanding debt of 976 million cedis. And we said in the previous quarter that we're going to absorb 50% of that cost in that tariff, which we did. So the other 50% we promised and we said we would roll it over into the next quarters. And the other 50% is 488 million cedis, which we are trying to recoup in this particular quarter. And we have also made provision for 27% recovery cost for the alternate fuels, namely the light crude oil, the distillate fuel oil, and the heavy fuel oils. And for the stability of the grid and the reliability of the grid, we're also making provision for the reserve margin. Now, if we had not taken all these factors into consideration and we're only to look at the exchange rate, the inflation, and the cost of the WACC, the weighted average cost of gas, it would have been a decline in tariffs, yes. But because we had an outstanding debt, that debt came to offset the decline of the tariffs. And also because we are making provision for part of the fuels, the liquid fuels which we use to power the thermal plants, That is how come we have this marginal increase of 2.45%.
Let's stay on the fuels, because we know that the government has passed, essentially. We're just waiting for an implementation date, really. A 1 cedi additional levy on fuel price build-up to take care of this fuel purchases. Did the PURC take into consideration that levy which has been passed, which we are awaiting its implementation in the cost build-up? What happens then to that tax as well, which many Ghanaians are anticipated to begin paying?
Well, the 1 cedi levy that we're talking about has not been passed. 2, it is outside the jurisdiction of the PURC. We do not have control over that. It is the Ministry of Energy that has control over that. It's a policy decision by government, which the PURC has no control over. What is within the domain of the PURC is that we decided to take only 27% of that cost to pass it through the tariff, and not the full cost of the fuels. So if you look at the press release, we said we take 27% of that cost.
Right.
The commissioners are mindful of the impact that it will have on the end user payer or the end user consumer. So we are also making sure that we do not pass through the full cost of the fuels, but only a portion of the fuels has been taken account of. So, as I said previously, if we're going to take into consideration only the exchange rate,
then we would have seen a decrease. But what happens when that levy kicks in and Ghanaians begin to pay 1 cedi more to take care of the fuel? Will this then be reviewed and removed subsequently in the next quarter?
Well, at this point in time, all I can say is that when we get to that bridge, then we'll cross it. Because at this point in time, I cannot speak to that particular issue. It is not within my jurisdiction to be able to speak to issues which I do not have enough information on.
A similar question will be asked on the debt which we're paying, 488 million cedis. Is it the projection of PURC that within the next quarter, July up until possibly September, when we begin paying again, we should have cleared this 488 million, and that again will not be a part of the price build-up for electricity going forward?
Exactly, that is the expectation, that this particular 488 million will be taken care of in this tariff and will not be part of the tariff that will be given the next quarter. So we do not expect to see any tariff adjustment based on an accumulated debt, because the accumulated debt of 976, we took portion of it in the last tariff window, and we've taken the rest of the 50% in this particular tariff window. So we do not expect to see that debt in the next tariff adjustment.
But would Ghanaians be justified to be disappointed to be paying more when all other things being equal? Almost all commodity prices are falling in terms of transport fares, fuel prices, and the likes, and yet they are seeing their energy bills go up by roughly 2.5%. They're justified in being disappointed, shouldn't they?
Well, as I said to you, we have a debt which is already outstanding, and we made it known to the public the last time we came up with the tariffs. So on that particular score, I don't think a lot more people will be very disappointed. In any case, whatever it is that we have done now, if you take, for instance, lifeliners, the addition that the lifeliner will pay, if you spend 30 units, or let's say 30 kilowatt hours at the end of the month, what you will pay additionally will be 60 pesos. Because currently, the person is paying about 27.28, 27 is 28 pesos. So from from 1st July up to onwards, whatever the person will be adding on will be 60 pesos. If you take somebody who claims, let's say, 50 units at the end of the month, the person is now currently paying 103 cedis. But from 1st July, the person will be adding on 2 cedis, 27 pesos.
Right.
So, yeah, so that's what will be the addition.
Right then. We'll leave it here. I'm sure we'll come to you again for a bit more on this. But that's Dr. Eric Obute, is the Director of Research and Corporate Affairs at the Public Utility Regulatory Commission, speaking to us as to why you'll be paying 2.45% more on your energy bills.